to order, and I'll start by acknowledging that we're on the homeland of the many diverse First Nations and Métis people who's walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. So we've got an addition to the agenda that our CAO's passed out, item 7.3, which is the Alberta Munis Conference. Is there any other additions that we need to make to this that are pressing?
Well, I was just going to say, as amended, I would move the agenda.
Oh, okay, perfect. All in favor? Carried.
Just with the agenda, the numbering is off. Because we have the minutes 5.1, which is actually 4.1. Safety and loss is numbered 8.1, but it's actually 7.1.
Oh, I see
In the
what you're saying,
agenda?
in the package.
Yes, just for clarification.
To
if
make
people
sure.
are following.
Yeah. All right, thanks for that. And we don't have any scheduled delegations. Is there anybody here that wants to be a public delegation?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, come on up. And I know you've been here before, but just a reminder, you have 5 minutes to address council, and we'd like you to start with your name so that the people that are watching this can hear who's presenting to council.
Okay, I'm Lori McKay.
Can you hit your button on the
Yep,
mic?
sorry, yep.
Thank
You
you.
don't think I'm loud enough?
It makes it easier for the...
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Lori McKay, and I got the newspaper, the South Peace News, just yesterday, okay? And in it, I see that the HB Council acknowledges Pride Month. And my question is why? This is a sexual-oriented, exclusionary group. Why are we honoring them? I'm sorry, there are so many more much-worthy, notable groups and people that we should be honoring. And like, for example, Mother's Day, one day. Grandparents' Day, one day. Pride gets a full month? That's ridiculous. Okay, the other thing is I happen to have a sister who's a lesbian. She's a wonderful person, but guess what? There's a lot more to her. She's got a brain, a heart, a soul. She's a fully functioning adult, a mother of 4. She's got a variety of things. Why are we having all this sexuality in our face all the time? It is ridiculous, okay? We should not be honoring them. And as a heterosexual, do you ever hear anybody going around, I'm heterosexual? Sorry, no, it isn't happening, but you have this group constantly in your face announcing it. That is, I'm sorry, appalling. People have way more to them, and I'm not judging them, other than to say is that unless and until I want, or any of us want to have sex with them, it's really, frankly, none of our business, their sexuality. It should not be advertised openly. That's for mature, consenting adults in the privacy of their own lives to get to that level of intimacy. Otherwise, I'm sorry, leave it alone. You're the mayor. I know nothing about your private sexual life. I know you're the mayor, you're a one-time son. Who knows what else you've done in business and all the rest of that. That's what makes you. Your sexuality is a very small part of you. And I am sick and tired of having it in the media and having all this virtue signaling about it. Don't honor any exclusionary group, and this is amongst them. All right? Thank you. I just wanted to understand, why are we honoring them in any way, which way or form? It shouldn't be. You want to, like the firefighters, holy crikey, they sure did a whole heck of a lot of good work. Why aren't we putting up them for a whole month? Something like that. Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yep.
So my question is, and I would like a response, why are we acknowledging them?
I can say that, you know, there's communities across Canada that are acknowledging them. I mean, you could ask all of them the same question, but
Absolutely.
I guess I mean, I've heard your side of saying why we should. From my perspective, I say, why not? They're humans, they're people, just
We
like
all are.
everybody
Why
else.
aren't we all
Yeah.
out there? That's the whole point. And there's a lot more that have done. Like, what have they done? Have they done something really wonderful? Are they heroes in some way? Are they raising money and contributing in some way? I don't believe that that's what they're all about. Let's honor those that are truly noteworthy and honorable.
Councillor Stenhouse?
So does the paper say that we honor them or we
Well,
recognize them?
Acknowledged. Okay, but
Okay.
even to that degree, I'm sorry, it's too much.
No, like you make a valid point. I also have issues with that. Why does Remembrance Day get 1 day
Exactly.
and all these other groups get
Negligible comparison or nothing at all.
Exactly, but I just wanted to clarify, did it say we honor or
No,
we recognize?
I use that term, it actually says only acknowledging, and it says, on the electronic sign, okay? And even that, I'm sorry, I think is too much. The other thing too is that too much sexuality is getting into the schools, and this is all part and parcel. This is where it started, and now it's just crazy. Okay, we need to back off of crazy. I'm tired of having crazy. Let's get down to reasonable, logical, practical, ethical, and a variety of other things. Please. Okay?
All right,
Thank
thank you. Councillor Danaka?
And just to respond to you, since I was the one that
Yes.
was asked if the town did anything for Pride, I said I would bring it to council and have a discussion, and it passed. And the reason that Pride Month is nationally by the government is that, as you say, sexuality, but it's not anything about sexuality. That is your opinion, and I'm saying that.
Tell me what each of those letters mean, and then you tell me how is it not about sexuality?
Pride is not about sexuality. The Pride Month in itself, if you really look at it, and you're talking about why don't heterosexuals have a day or a month?
I'm talking about why doesn't any other group that has really truly contributed in some way have a month?
Again, that's your opinion, but statistically wise, if you look at Pride and gay and lesbians or whatever you want to call it, and heterosexuals, your sexuality is not criminalized. Your
didn't say that.
sexuality is not based on, you could be killed for that.
You're talking the past. That hasn't been the case for a long time.
There is 68 countries still in this world
We're here
that,
in Canada. Let's stick with Canada, please.
fine, but I'm just saying, Pride Month is to acknowledge that specific group of people, and it's been a national month or whatever, as you want to say, but again, and this is your opinion and it's different than mine, I don't view Pride as a sexuality thing. And that's your opinion and that's my
Okay,
opinion.
so
Okay, I'm gonna draw a
it
line
has to
under
do with
this
the
because
LGBTQ, doesn't
we
it?
could go on with this all night long, but, we've heard your feelings and your thoughts, and thank you for that, and you got an answer on why we did support it at the last meeting, so, and I do want to draw a line so we can get on with the rest of the agenda, so, but thank you for coming in. All right, moving on to our peace officers report. Can I get a motion to start this off? Councillor Stenhouse?
the council receives the senior peace officers May 2023 report for information.
All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to our peace officer, senior peace
Evening,
officer.
council. Nothing out of the ordinary, I just open for any comments or questions from council.
All right. Any questions, comments? I do have one.
Okay.
I'm wondering, I know it's this time of year, once the grass is getting long and some of the properties get unsightly, and I know that you had mentioned that there was some being followed up on. Can you just tell us where we're at with some of those unsightlies? And
Well, from the letters and the door knockers that we've put on the properties, we've got probably 95% compliance. The ones that we haven't, we've contacted contractors to go on and cut the grass or the weeds, but they too are busy. So we're on a list. Unfortunately, that's where it's at right now.
okay,
There's not that many. There's only maybe 2 or 3 that are needed.
okay, that haven't complied and are
Yeah.
gonna get,
And they're probably the ones that come to mind. They don't live in town. They're out of town or out of the province. So that's
okay, thank you for that.
okay.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Ishishin.
So would that be the, or what's the kind of the ratio on like the boulevards versus on the private property?
Well, the boulevards. That's an ongoing educational thing. Quite a few residents know and have cut theirs, but there's a couple around town that aren't aware of it, or we have to remind them. And there are a couple commercial lots too that are, I think the town is supposed to do the commercial boulevards.
So would the fires have had anything to do with that? That people are decided to evacuate themselves or weren't around their residence or?
Not that I'm aware of. Nobody's made that comment.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, if I could just add a couple comments. Some of the policy changes that council did during previous budget deliberations, council may want to report back during the upcoming budget deliberations to look at the operational effectiveness of these policies. So policies are one thing. You mentioned boulevards. There's other issues. There was a blanket decision by council to do A, B, and C. How that is practically implemented is a different issue. So some of the issues the peace officers are dealing with is the outcome of that policy. So I'd be pleased, staff would be pleased, and we've talked about this at least 2 or 3 times at our leadership meetings, some of the concerns and challenges with those broad-based decisions of council. And it may be appropriate that staff report back for next year's budget deliberations on the practical realities of those type of sweeping directions from council.
All right, do you want a motion so it's captured? Because council would be happy to hear those, I'm sure.
I prefer a motion so then it's tracked on
Yeah.
the action sheet, so.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Mr. Bloom? Seeing none, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
We had a motion to receive for information. All in favor? Carried. Would anybody like to make a motion while it is fresh with regards to getting an update on the policy? Councillor Ishishin?
I'll make that motion.
All right. getting administration to report back to council during budget deliberations?
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right. So moving on then to our meeting minutes. Can I get a motion on this? Councillor Shishin?
The council approves the minutes from the June 13th, 2023 regular meeting of council as presented.
Any errors or omissions in these? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Any business coming out of the minutes? Nothing? Okay, moving on then to new business, the safety and loss management system. Get a motion on this? Councillor Martins, she's got her finger just right there, I could see her moving.
I'll move that council adopts the Town of High Prairie Safety and Loss Management System.
All right, thank you. And with that, I can see Vern's there. Maybe I'll turn it over to Vern and he can fill us in.
Okay, as part of us preparing for the 2023 audit in the gas system, we found that these two items that I have on the agenda today were lacking. We have been adopting the QMP, but not these two items that are on the agenda today. As a regulatory requirement, we really have no option. The Federation of Gas Co-ops has a template that we've adopted to the Town of High Prairie's operations, and this will give staff clear direction and tools to be utilized to comply with the QMP as well as these two items on the agenda tonight.
All right, thank you. I'll throw it open for any questions, comments. Councillor Stenhouse?
I have lots. Am I limited? So why is this, I've never seen this before. 2 terms on council, I've never seen this before. Why is this coming to us now?
This is what we, this part of the SLMS is things that are evolving in the gas industry. The IMP was overlooked in, I think the last time it was adopted was in 2019. And was initialed by the mayor and the CEO at the time, Brian Martinson.
Okay, so to get my questions in chronological order here. So, Mr. Mayor, you will be signing this contract. It's asking for the mayor's signature. But it wants council to accept it, but I have many questions because it says that the Town of High Prairie is committed to managing, okay, I'm just gonna, the life cycle of the pipeline system. That this, is involved in the construction, operation, maintenance, and abandonment of the pipeline system. Do we have this paperwork in place?
This paperwork?
Yes.
This paperwork is giving us a guideline that we have to follow. We have the O&M manual from the Federation. There is government legislation such as the Z662 that we have to follow. Though that's where it spells out. This is just a guideline to help and assist us follow those documents.
So what is the mayor signing tonight? Just this guideline or this contract?
This isn't a contract. This is an agreement that we have to, that this is what we will do to provide a safe utility
Okay,
and abide by the rules of what is out there in the legislation of running pipelines.
yes. So in the management responsibility and policy, we'll have annual council review and approval. So every year, it will come to us, we'll have time to review it and approve it.
Yep.
Is there any way we can get it out sooner, as I have a little bit of knowledge on pipeline, but I sent this off to an expert on pipelines and I haven't received an answer yet on their opinion of this agreement. Would we have more notice than 4 days?
Absolutely. This has got to be adopted each year. And typically it would come forward in February when we bring the QMP forward to be adopted. That's when I'm planning on bringing these back every year, is in February. There'll be the QMP, the IMP, and the SLMS all at the same time.
Okay, so it also states that each distributor shall maintain an organizational chart identifying responsibilities. I have never seen an organizational chart from the town of High Prairie. It should have an organizational chart, job description, succession plan.
These are
That
the
the
things
town
we-
of High Prairie shall employ qualified personnel. Do we have qualified personnel?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I
If
know
I
our
could-
chair, or CAO would like
If
to
I
speak.
could jump in again, this is new, but it's in compliance with the regulatory body. So this is a regulatory thing. Every year, the regulatory body may impose new requirements on operators in the province. The town is an operator for gas system, gas distribution system. So this is what every distributor in the province is subject to. Obviously, all organizations, specifically in the nature of delivery of underground, subsurface, gas utilities, there's a high level of risk. So every year you'll see additional items being added in from a compliance perspective. Some of the questions you're asking are what is called standard operating procedures. So they would not be in these documents, such as job descriptions and organizational charts. That's been delegated to the CAO to maintain those type of things. So there's tons of documents that aren't before council. As the superintendent of public works has outlined, this document is to say, in totality, the town as an operator of a gas utility is in compliance with the framework requirements from a legislative perspective. The staff in the utility operations have hundreds of standard operating procedures that get it down to the nuts and bolts. This organization will be coming in to do an audit. They'll be delving into not only these framework agreements that are required to maintain licensing to distribute gas within the community. They'll also be going through rigorously all the standard operating procedures with Vern and the staff in those in the utility unit, specifically the gas. And it will be no different when it comes to changes in the water and sewer regulatory framework. The bottom line is all operators and municipalities in particular are being subject to a heightened level of government regulation. So even though the provincial government and the Fed say red tape reduction, that's far from the case. So compliance is a major issue. So again, I would encourage council to look at this as a high-level document and not an operational document. So the senior executive officer for the town is the chief executive officer, which happens to be the mayor, and the chief administrative officer that runs the operation. So it's quite common, like any type of formal document, that both the mayor and the CAO execute those agreements on behalf of the town. So just to get into that. So that, again, it's a high-level documentation. As Vern's indicated, it will be consolidated and council will be getting an annual sort of compliance report with everything pulled together. But that's not to say next year there may be a new piece of information that's required because of change in the regulatory framework in the province.
So it's looking for the mayor's signature, and I'm assuming they would want it tonight. And it says that council will accept this. But don't we have to understand all this before we accept it? That's the reasoning behind the questions, is we have to understand this document before we accept it.
I hear your point, and we'd be pleased to, council's having a committee of the whole meeting in August. That would really be a training session, and we can provide a training session on the regulatory frameworks related to the gas utility or the like, but that generally isn't something that would be done during a council meeting.
But the motion was to accept it.
Basically, to adopt this plan for the municipality.
For staff to follow.
Right. So these are the guidelines that the regulatory agency is saying council's adopted this framework, therefore administration will implement this framework and develop and change our standard operating procedures to comply with this regulatory framework. That's what is before council tonight. So in terms of changing the regulatory framework, there is no options for council.
No, I'm not saying change it. I want to understand, because it's continuously referring to the town of High Prairie, which is us. And it says monthly operational and council meetings, which is us. So before I throw my name behind a document, I want to understand it.
Okay, if we go to documents and records and control documents, right? Compliance of the QMP, which is a government standard, we have no choice but to comply with the QMP. The implementation of the IMP is an integrity management plan developed by our staff. That's all it is. It's not binding council to being sued or anything like that. All council is saying is our staff will follow this, not council. That's Bill's job to make sure that our staff are following what you guys adopt here.
I'm glad you brought that point up, because that was my closing question was, what are the implications on council by signing this document?
The only thing that I can see in this document that if council doesn't give us the funds to implement this document, that's all. That's the only thing that council really controls in this document. The rest is an operational thing. Like the monthly, we follow the Federation O&M manual already, rigorously. The following health and safety policy procedures, we follow that because that's already what we have to do. So it's not binding council to anything that isn't already there.
No, but in many of these paragraphs it says annual council reviews,
Yeah.
monthly council meetings. That is us.
Yeah.
That is speaking to us.
Yeah.
Even though it's, if I could through the
Thank
chair,
you.
it's basically saying administration must provide council these reports as required, and council must deal with these regulatory criteria as required. It's not saying council has to do anything. It's up to administration to bring forward the appropriate changes from a policy perspective that the regulatory authority may wish the town as a gas distributor to comply with.
Vern, is there anything in this document that we're not doing right now? Like, is there?
There's
anything?
nothing that we're not already doing. This is just formalizing what we're doing.
Okay.
Because
so-
we have to follow the Federation O&M manual already,
Yeah.
right? And you'll see how many times that's referred to. These are, then in the other one, the integrity management plan, you'll see that it refers to the documents that gives the guys tools to refer to help them make sure that these are compliant, right?
Yeah, okay, I understand the safety part of this and making sure it's safe. When I looked through it too, I didn't really understand the loss management. What's the in here are they referring to with loss management? Loss of gas? to
Loss
the
of
pipeline?
gas or loss of service, loss of supply. Like that's what they're referring to.
That's what they're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
So if as a parallel, if I could, maybe to help council a bit, is, it's no different than in the water system. You know, most municipalities, you know, report on what their loss is on the water system, and that, you know, may mean that we're lacking in preventive maintenance. It may mean our pipes are aging. The loss rate of, this is how much water left the plant, how much was actually billed. That would be the loss ratio, and it's no different than the gas. If we have a high loss ratio, the integrity of the system should be reviewed.
Yeah, well, we're doing that testing of our pipelines
Yes.
and getting that. How is that coming along? What
The
did that show us?
RFP is ready to go out.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, any other questions on this one? Councillor Martins?
So, Councillor Stenhouse sort of asked what I was thinking. The quality management plan, Vern, has been done annually. We've always had the
Yes.
QMP, correct?
Yeah.
So is this the first time that the safety and loss management report or,
To my knowledge, yes.
okay, that was my question, because this is the first time that the integrity management plan is being asked for.
No, the integrity management
Oh,
plan was
2019.
adopted in 2019.
Okay, so the SLMS, this is the first time?
This is the
Okay.
first time that this is coming
And
before
this is
council.
provincially required?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could, just to reinforce what the Superintendent of Public Works is saying, the framework is here, but a lot of the components within this framework have always been complied with, but it's just the framework has not been formally adopted by the organization, even though administration has been in compliance with almost everything, pretty well everything here. So the major issues have already been dealt with through our standard operating procedures. We do have organizational charts. Council has been provided an organizational chart during its orientation. We do have job descriptions. We're working on the succession development plan, which we'll be talking to council more broadly in August about. Council's aware that we have difficulty attracting certain types of job classes in the municipality. So there'll be updates throughout the year on some of these action plans to deliver and improve on the safety and loss management program. Part of, I think, the challenge is by having it titled Safety and Loss Management System, it implies, you know, we're deficient. We're not deficient in any of these areas, and we are compliant in all the areas. This is just setting up a framework to say, you will meet these regulatory standards, and you're agreeing to that, and then it's up to administration to action it.
Just, so this is due yearly, but the last time was in 2019.
Not for the SLMS.
Okay.
This is what I'm bringing forward for the first time.
Did the regulation change?
That I'm unaware of. This has just been brought to my attention by our supervisor of gas, and that's why we have it here today. But I'm assuming that it did change in order to have this as part of our, the IMP never changed. That was always there. It just hasn't come forward for a few years. We were unaware that we had to have it adopted by council every year. And now, from now on, it's on our calendar that it will be coming forward in February of each year.
And the superintendent can correct me if I'm wrong, but over the last 10 years, how many audits have we had?
We have an audit every 3 years.
Right, so there is a compliance audit where the regulatory authority does come on site and do an extensive audit. If there was significant issues, council would be alerted to those issues. And that's, for instance, why the pipe integrity was reported to council. So as those issues arise, they will be reported out either through specific RFPs to council or be items that would be dealt with during budget deliberations. So this is not new. it's a change in how it's coming to council and the outfall, but really what the report's trying to do is set up the framework related to the regulatory requirements.
Okay, we've all heard the story. We had a motion to adopt this. All in favor? Carried. Moving on then to our integrity management program. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Waco?
I'll move the council adopt the Town of High Prairie's Integrity Management Program.
And we've already heard about this one and that it was done in 2019.
The previous one, yep.
Yeah. Is there any changes between that one and this one?
It's pretty much the same thing.
And the purpose of this program is what, Vern? Just what's the difference with it?
This one here is to make sure that we have, as you can see, say competency and training, that we have the requirements. It's like some of this is not required by the town that we have in here, but it's a recommended training. We just have to identify what we have as training, because we are not required to have a licensed gas fitter on staff. All we have to have is gas utility operators, which we have 4 of. Emergency response plan, that's part of the O&M manual. And the emergency response plan that the town has developed through disaster services, right? WMIS is standard. Everybody knows what WMIS is. H2S Live training is just, we have that for both water and sewer. I'm just referring to one section of this, but it's pretty much standard and pretty much everything that we are doing already again.
Councillor Stenhouse?
So this will take effective today, correct? Once it's
Yes.
signed?
Well, we will start working on the process to make sure that all of the requirements of the SMLS
Yes,
are
because
being met.
it says, when the mayor puts his signature here, that the council will accept all the terms, conditions, and commitments are being satisfied based on the annual report.
Yes.
You understand where I'm coming
Yes.
from? Because it's addressing council, and like I said, I want to
this
understand the
is-
document before I throw my name behind it.
Yep. I totally understand. You're fearful of being drug into court and for no reason, but ultimately in the end, council's just, it's almost like a directive to Bill to ensure these things are being done. It's not making council liable for the operation of this system. That's when it falls upon staff. It actually exonerates you more than if we didn't have this in place.
Vern, you brought up a question before about not getting the funding needed to meet these guidelines.
Yeah.
And that was part of my question before. Are we meeting these guidelines? And yes, we are. So we're funding what's necessary now. Do you see any big changes coming in the future?
In the future, depending on the supply from TransCanada, there may be a new supply. We might have to secure a new supply. We would get a hand from Gas Alberta in regards to this. They have a policy there that would help communities such as ours secure new supplies and transmission to get here. If there was ever an integrity problem, which that's what we're finding out with the pipeline this summer, that comes from up north, if there's ever an integrity problem there, then there's several other options that we do have. We'd have to discuss an option with the co-op. They have a transmission line that's far closer to town that they operate, which TransCanada supplies that pipeline, but they operate it. We would get into discussions with them about moving a sales tap closer to town.
So there's nothing really outstanding that you see, but I mean, obviously, those studies might bring something up that we're not
When
aware of.
when we do a cutout, we do have a replacement. We do send the pipe out for an analysis to see how the condition of the pipe is. And we bring in a line walker. I think council's all seen him go around with his little gas sniffer, an independent third party. They come in and they do an integrity check on the lines in town on an annual basis. The cathodic protection, which is the electrolysis exchange between the steel pipe and the anode beds, that's checked over on an annual basis, and that's basically the requirements that are in these documents, and that's what we're doing. It's part of the federation, right? And we have a binder this thick, O&M manual from the federation that we have to follow, plus all the other documentation that is as part of operational pipelines.
Okay, so go ahead.
Again, if the question is where are the major risks attached to our systems, again, the infrastructure, we're able to manage the infrastructure. Renewal of infrastructure is always a challenge for any utility, and it's really a timing issue. As I've been saying since I've been here, our biggest challenge when it comes to our utilities, both gas, water, and sewer, is the availability of human resources to implement and manage what is required under these plans. We do have numerous staff that are eligible for retirement now that will likely be losing over the next few years. When this document and internal documents talk about succession planning and retention and attraction of staff, that will be a challenge over the next couple of years. So we have been fortunate to have long-serving staff in a number of these key components, but the availability of robust succession planning program is something that administration and all the managers are discussing, and specifically the operational areas, because that's where the biggest risk for the town is.
All right, anything else on the IMP? We had a motion to adopt it. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to the addition, which was the Alberta Munis Conference. 7.3. Can I get a motion on this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
The council seek meetings with ministers related to policies and issues during the fall AM convention.
All right, and there was a blank line. You were looking for specific ones at the end of the day to contact, so we can have that discussion. Thanks for the motion to get it going. I'll start. We definitely should be chatting with the Minister of Health. We got lots of issues there. I mean, both we've got the hospital land. Where's that? Is it getting sold? We got the issue of getting the emergency room, or I should say the operating rooms going. We got issues with how the hospital was closed during the fires, so lots of issues with them. That's one for sure. And others, Councillor Waco?
The hospital land wouldn't actually be the Minister of Health, I don't think, at this point. It would be whoever's in charge of their property and stuff, because I think AHS has transferred that now, which is where the confusion came from with the sale of.
The land is in under Alberta Health Services.
Is it still
again.
Still there, yeah. We thought it would go, but it hadn't been moved.
So we'll talk to them about that.
Yeah.
We should talk to McIver, Minister of Justice as well. Would be nice if we can get in, have a chat with him.
So municipal affairs is what
Yeah.
you're suggesting?
What I'm looking for is each of those ministers and their staff in particular will be looking for a briefing note. So what are the areas of interest from a policy perspective, or what are issues that council has we can address that in the briefing note.
You want that right now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well,
But we
for,
have previous briefing notes too.
I think with, Minister of Municipal Affairs, I think it's McIver again, isn't it? McIver's minister, yeah. Anyways, same thing as last year, right? The municipal funding, we have to make sure we secure that. Hospital, we've, identified that. Minister of Justice, you know, some of the, issues around crime that we've had around here. And, you know, things like that. What else did I say? Is that it? Just the two?
Can we possibly get a meeting with the RCMP regarding the dog?
Yeah. That's not a minister though, that's
But we
just,
can
but
ask-
yeah, we can ask for
We've
them.
often
But
had
they're
meetings
always there.
Yeah,
So, yeah, just for clarification, the RCMP will have a rep at the justice table.
But they usually have their own room also where you can get all of them, and I think that would be a good one to meet with.
yeah.
Yeah. Other ministers that we need to, I mean, the other issue is you often can't get into them anyways, that's some of the challenge, but, we can certainly try to see if we can get in on, to see, some of these ones. Councillor Martins?
So I had some of the ones that you guys just mentioned. I also have environment just for the SO lot. I mean, I know it's ad nauseum, but one more time doesn't hurt. To see if they can, you know, what they're doing from a policy perspective, CER, AER, you know, what they're doing to industry to see why we're not remediating that. I mean, I even had economic development, tourism on here, but environment, Alberta Health, protective services, municipal affairs, and transportation, but part of that is probably us for some of our roads.
Yeah, no, that transportation is an interesting one because they've made the, I guess, a promise that they were gonna come here next year, so it's probably worthwhile to make sure that they haven't forgotten that and just say, oh, thank you, you know, even if it's a thank you, you know, we're really looking forward to it. And yeah, no, I like transportation if we can get into that.
So just, it hasn't been reported to council yet, but that briefing email that I provided to council saying that it was their intent.
Yeah.
They've subsequent have backed off a bit, saying, given that we have a new minister, we wish, it's not in the 5-year capital plan yet. Until it's in the 5-year capital plan, it's as good as not being anywhere.
Then we definitely need to meet with them. That makes it even more critical to get in. Yeah, that's a good one.
Perhaps we need to meet with the Minister of Finance to get the Treasury to open their purse strings, because really all these guys are gonna say it's 5-year capital plan, so we may as well meet with the Finance Minister, right? Partly tongue in cheek. That's what money is.
We've got, I don't know if we have time to meet with all of them, but
Perhaps.
yeah.
The intent of today's was just to say what level of interest, because as the mayor's alluded to, the spots will quickly fill up. But generally, there is a commitment from the ministers to, even if they can't meet at the AM conference, to schedule meetings sometime during the year. So at least we can get the ball rolling and get the briefing notes prepared and the like. But numerous ministers, you know, their staff will review it, and we'll find out 2 weeks before the conference whether we're scheduled or not, and they'll be obviously looking to align the government's objectives with the briefing notes that they do receive. And as always, there'll be significant overlap between common issues or among municipalities. So, you know, there'll be, as I addressed in the RFD, there'll be, the key ministers will be at the AM conference, and they will be on stage providing an update of sort of their action plan as the new minister, and that will provide council some insight of where the government may be going.
Councillor Waco?
Are they gonna continue with the bear pit sessions? Do we know?
That's generally the format that happens, right?
So, I mean, that's another place where we can, if we don't get a one-on-one meeting with them, can, at least speak to them directly at the bear pit sessions, which has yielded results in the past, or you catch them in the hallway. Right, sometimes you can catch them in the hallway and bend their ear for a couple of minutes. It's, you know, at least put the paper in their hands and get our concerns out there. And you know, asking to meet with a whole bunch of them, it's not a bad thing to say, oh, you know, we want to meet with these 10 ministers or whatever, because we're not going to get to meet with all 10. We might get 2 or 3, but you know, if you only ask for those 2 or 3, you probably, you know, you're taking the chance of not getting any of them. So kind of hit it with a shotgun thing and see what you get. You know, shotgun it out there. And if you get all 10, well, then we're busy.
There's been years where we've split the council in two because the meetings have been at the same time, so.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so just, I know you kept some notes, but I got health, municipal affairs, justice, RCMP, transportation, environment, which I know there was another one, I can't, oh, there was,
That's all I had, but.
that you got those 6? Okay, the motion, do we want to add these specifically in? So that
Yeah,
there's
yeah, but can we, like, if we think of something else, throw it out there? Like, can we kind of leave this motion that we will list those, but if pressing issues come up, we could add to it?
July 13th is deadline, but we want to know. Oh, yeah, right.
Well, yeah, July 13th is for municipal affairs with Rick McIver, so that's one, right? The other ones may or may not have such a hard deadline, but I don't think that's a bad idea, that if we, you know, wake up in the morning and go, you know, we should talk to Minister so-and-so, right? And then just get that over to administration in an email.
So what I would suggest through the mayor is, we will prepare, administration will prepare the briefing notes and circulate them, and as things come up, we can adjust the briefing note.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay,
just-
so, oh,
If I could just, the other issue that I just want to speak to quickly is, there was an email sent out in terms of booking the rooms, so the rooms have been booked for those that have said, regardless of whether you responded, whether you're coming or not, rooms have been secured. Some of the conference hotels were fully booked, but we have secured 6 rooms for the members of council. Well, we didn't book rooms for the members that said they couldn't make it. So 6 rooms have been reserved for those that said they could attend. Those can be canceled without cost. But again, you know, we need to know for sure whether you want to release those reserved rooms or not. And then they're all in the same hotel. It's a 6-minute walk from the convention center and the like. So it is not a bad location. It's much more reasonable than some of the other hotels. And it's well within the budget that's been established for the event. So we'll follow up for members of council. But again, Shane, we got rooms booked. If you want to do something else, please let us know. But administration, i.e. our illustrious legislative clerk, will be registering once we get your confirmation that you will be attending. Because that, there's a risk if it is canceled, right? So.
okay, so Kelly, have you got those 6 ministries listed? Okay, and the motion was made by Councillor Stenhouse, right?
Yes.
Okay, are you are all right with that amendment to adding those in? All right, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to our staff and CAO's report. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Stenhouse?
That council received CAO Bill McKinnon's report and action list for information.
All right, so I'll turn it over to our CEO if there's anything you'd like to add or update on the report.
I'd like to just add an information item. In terms of the rec committee, I'll leave that to the mayor to speak to from his perspective as the chair of that committee. But we did have a joint recreation committee last week. We have now our, whatever, June 22nd, sorry. Last week, I forget what date it was, but the county did complete the audit related to the Waste Management Authority. So our auditors will have probably next week the consolidated statements for council's consideration, and that will put that to bed. It's kind of interesting timing with all the flooding happening around the province. We did have an information update on the compliance plan related to dam management in our area. So there is a dam management plan dealing with overland flooding and the like, and that plan is updated annually, and that happened over the last week. Meeting with Community Futures, they are likely to come and have a deputation before council on a couple initiatives they wish to see if council has an interest in. So I've encouraged them to actually do a budget development. Ministry of Transportation, not directly within the town, but our legislative administrator did post on our website today and Facebook that there is significant improvements being done on Highway 747 that were just emailed yesterday to us. And construction is starting immediately, so 747 all the way down to Highway 669, that 40-kilometer stretch, will be significant work between today and realistically, the hard construction will probably start by the end of the month and go on to October, but that means there'll be lane restrictions, significant work being done on that 40-kilometer stretch of road. Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did the other half.
So that is good news. They're a bit late telling us, but it's still good news. So, and that concludes my report in terms of the IT carryover. We're targeting now that July 10th will be the official changeover of our vendors, and there'll be a little in-house event that day with the new IT vendor support services and staff to get them sort of fully onboarded. Here's the protocols, here's this. Some of you, well, you probably haven't seen it yet, but numerous staff have already switched over as test sites. And, you know, I was showing the mayor the other day an example of here's an email that comes in, and it does have a warning on it that this may be, you know, be careful with this one. You know, it's an improvement over what has happened in the past, but anyways, that concludes my report, and be pleased to answer any questions.
Councillor Martins?
Thank you, Bill. So the Community Futures, is that the Slave Lake?
That's correct.
Okay, and so they're planning on coming here to council then?
I've encouraged them. They have 2 or 3 specific initiatives they're working on with other communities, such as housing accelerator and a bunch of other specific projects. So I encouraged them to put together a presentation, and they said they would be prepared to do that and come to council and brief council on some of the initiatives that they're working with in the region.
Okay, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask if there's anything with the DQ opening or launch plans, or is this the right format to ask? Do you know? Is there any news?
Yes, they're targeting, let me see, get my month straight. July 20, the latter part of July, by the end of July, they will be operational. Council will be receiving an invite to an informal soft opening or celebration, and that's for council staff of the Dairy Queen and the like. We're doing some retrofit work related to our boulevard on their site, and things are working out really good with the developer. I believe if they already haven't started their final pouring of concrete, you'll probably see concrete being poured this week. So they're going along, they're sort of going above and beyond. We, from an administrative perspective, met with them a week or so ago with the owner and some prime senior management of that organization, and they're committed to do things that weren't in the original development plan, such as providing fencing related to the riverside and, security measures. Obviously there'll be kids in the parking lot and young kids, and they recognize that, safety is a concern, and they're sort of stepping up to do those things without them being required as part of their development approvals. So stay tuned, you will be getting an email.
Good, all right. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wakel.
You said the flooding information was given. Does that include an updated floodplain map for the town, or is it for just the area?
It really doesn't focus on town overflow issues, potential land overflow issues. It focuses on the action plan related to any release relating to the dams north of town.
The only reason I ask is because my insurance company tells me that I live in a floodplain, and I told them that if my house is underwater, then there's some big problems in the world.
Okay, I had a couple there. I'll just start off with, I'm wondering about fire review, like just doing a review with the county on how the fires went and improvements, changes. Is there anything like that planned in the future?
At the start of the fires, myself and the CEO of the county agreed that that would happen. There are still numerous activities happening with claims management and the like, so it will be happening. It will probably be happening the latter part of the summer rather than in the next month or two.
Yeah, okay. The other question is, we got the notification from the county that they were pulling out of the rural renewal stream, which we were a partner in, but because they were the name, we're off of that now. Have we heard anything? There was some talk before that the chamber might take that over. Is there any more developments on that? Have you heard of anything?
No new developments. I did circulate the RFD that went to the county council, and obviously they see that as not a viable solution, and the funding is really the issue, and based on that, the county has pulled out of the program, and the province acted swiftly, and the county, in reference to the town as a partner, are no longer on the provincial website related to that program.
Okay, and just a question for you and for council. In the past, during the summer months, we've often canceled one or sometimes two meetings because they're not always as busy. I guess, I'll ask administration if they've thought of it. Do we need all of the meetings in the summer, or should we keep them as scheduled?
As the mayor's alluded to, specifically in July and August, there will be, staff on vacation, and I imagine certain councillors will be using the opportunity to enjoy the good weather. So there is, from my perspective, no major initiatives that would have to be dealt with, and like numerous communities, the summer schedule is usually lightened. So it's really council's call. But again, we've had a fairly light agenda for the last couple meetings, and we don't perceive any major issues coming. There will be a couple committee meetings scheduled, such as the bylaw review committee and the like, and those may be happening, you know, in August. But we can work with those committee members to find a suitable date. So it's really council's call, but there, from my perspective, won't be any major items coming to council that I'm aware of.
Okay, Councillor Wakel?
We could quite easily, I think, go to just one meeting in July, one meeting in August, and if something of critical importance comes up, you can just call a meeting. It's, you know, that's one of the things you can do. You give proper notice and everything, but it's been done before. There's been some years where there's been lots of stuff, but as CEO Bill has alluded to, our last couple council meetings have been pretty light and that, so I don't know, I think if we had just one meeting in each month, that would be fine, and if something critical comes up, then you just call a meeting.
Okay, Councillor Stenhouse?
So, during the budget deliberations, $10,000 was allotted to a website that was being run by the county. Is that up and running?
That is stalled a bit, so we haven't had any discussion on, well, I haven't been engaged in any discussion internally. They might have and are having discussions on that, but because of, you know, I'm not blaming everything on the fires, but their communication staff was fairly consumed with that event, and there's still action reports that have to go back to the province related to the claims management, and the back end work is quite significant to get your money back. So I'll follow up with them and figure out where they are on that initiative.
Yeah, and are we gonna be reimbursed for losing 6 months out of that contract, or it was a flat contract for a year, or it was an ongoing thing? Is it still costing us $10,000 even though it's not up and running, is what I'm asking?
Yeah, it was still, the contract will be awarded for an upset fee. Our share is 10,000, so the contract and the RFP to get a service provider and bidders on that hasn't occurred yet. So it's a timing delay. Our cost share won't change. It's basically a one-time fee to get the site up and running and the links coordinated and the like. So it could, even if it's not done until December 31st, it will still be $10,000, so.
Okay, I'd like to just go back to the, going to one meeting in July and perhaps one in August. Is anybody against that idea? With the option to call one if we had something pressing coming up? Yeah, I don't, well, it does give staff a bit of a break, because every time when you gotta prepare for a meeting and then follow up on the meeting, and so it does give them some time to catch up on some of the new things, like getting set up with their new IT stuff, right? They'll be busy with some of that in the next, as of July 10th. All right, so if we're gonna do that, would we go to the second Tuesday or the fourth Tuesday of the month? Which one would you like to go to for July? And then probably as a result of that, maybe look at that same time frame for August.
I would like to keep the first one.
Okay, so we'd go with the second Tuesday of July and the second Tuesday of August at this point? Okay, does anybody object to that before we, no? So we have one motion, we're dealing with the CAO's report, but after we're done with this, we can come out. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page there, and then we can make a motion after this. But before we move on, is there any other questions for CAO? Oh, Councillor Martins.
Not necessarily for the CEO, for all of us. So this isn't the summer, this is the September Alberta Municipalities Conference 27th, which is a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That Tuesday evening is a scheduled meeting. Are we having our evening scheduled meeting? Because generally with these AUMA events, there's always a there's learning sometimes, and we always miss out because we look at that finite day of start. So I'm just wondering, I haven't looked at an agenda, but are we meeting that Tuesday night before? On the 26th?
Yeah, I guess we can look at that. I don't know the answer to that, for sure. Yeah, I haven't looked at it.
that in August.
Hmm?
We can look at that in August,
Yeah.
then we should have a schedule.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
if, that's a good point the councillor brings up, because the rooms have been booked for the evening of the 26th, which would allow travel on the 26th, but if any member of council wishes to do pre-training, that is actually on the 26th. So rooms would have to be secured if you were going to do that pre-training. And I don't know what council's practice has been before, whether that's considered part of the convention or not, but I'll defer to council on that. But just be aware that, you know, the rooms have been booked to allow councillors to go on down the night before, because the convention starts at 8 o'clock the next morning. So that the rooms have been booked to allow that travel time, and then be bright and early in the morning and the like. But if council members wish to attend the pre-sessions, which are all day on the 26th, and those pre-sessions are listed on their website already. Again, a couple of them will be fast and furious and fill up very quickly. So again, I would encourage council to let us know your intentions if you have any hope of attending some of those. A couple of them are actual site visits. So the site visits and this, what they call the study tours, generally, once they're booked, and there's no opportunity.
Okay, so I guess council can look at it and perhaps send out an email to, if somebody is interested, and go from there. All right, anything else? No, we had the motion to receive the report for information. All in favor? Carried. And make a motion for missing some council meetings. Would anybody like to make that one? Councillor Danaka?
I make a motion that council, that administration advertise that there will be one meeting in July and one meeting in August, and the fourth Thursday of each month will be cancelled. Tuesday, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on that one? Motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. All right, notice then, moving on to our reports. Councillor Danaka?
The only thing that I had is that I attended the NAF open house that they had, the Northwest Alberta Foundation, that used to be, I can't remember, community something or other, which I can't remember. So basically they just sort of introduced themselves, sort of a little bit about what they do, info on funding sources. From what I can gather is they also manage some philanthropic funds that have been set up through them or administered by them. Basically they're available for nonprofits to access help with grant applications, seeing what's out there, et cetera, et cetera. While they were here, they presented $3,000 checks to community organizations, the Fetal Alcohol Syndrome Group, CRC, and the Food Bank. So that's basically it. I move my verbal report for information.
Councillor Stenhouse?
Just out of curiosity, how many, did they have a good turnout for that meeting?
Well, there was the three organizations, like their CAOs were there. Not really. There was the CAOs for the organizations, then their administrative team was there, and then a handful
I'm
of
looking
others.
for people in the community, cause I had forwarded that email to a few organizations, okay.
No.
All right, I don't see any other questions, so all in favor? Carried. Councillor Martins?
Thank you. So, I attended the Indigenous Day event that the High Prairie Native Friendship Center, along with other organizations, put on the 21st of June. The road was closed. There were ice cream trucks and hot dogs. I think I managed to get the last hot dog, but it was actually fun. It was a nice day, and then it started to sprinkle. At which point, I thought, okay, it's time to say goodbye. But no, it was a fun event. Lots of kids and kids activities. You know, all of the staff for the Friendship Center were there, and that was that. So the other committee I had was the Joint Health Attraction and Retention Committee that I chaired. We had the chamber president attend and give we actually gave the chamber an update on our regional survey results so that he could take it back to the chamber and look at, we didn't want to duplicate efforts within the Health Attraction Committee, and so kind of relayed some of those things. One of the offshoots came to your Joint Rec Committee, and that was the appetite for a roster of events that would be amalgamated, they're hoping, by the Town of High Prairie's rec staff. And I know we had brought it up maybe a couple of months ago, at which time, you know, there wasn't maybe bandwidth, and I'm hoping it's reconsidered. What else came out of that meeting? Those were some of the feedback points. We had our PAP present as always. We talked about one of the other points, and I didn't know, Bill, if I should have asked this in your CAO report. There was an item brought forward. You know, housing has been something that's been talked about in numerous of these meetings for the physician staff, but also the allied health professionals. Was there anything that came forward for the town to write a letter of support for some sort of housing development? Is that something you're familiar with, or?
There hasn't been any request that I've received in that regard. Of course, if I could, the Community Futures is interested in talking to the council of participating in a housing accelerator program. So there is federal money available to explore that area and communities to provide housing for diversified housing, not social housing, but diversified housing through grants that are available at the at the federal level. The application intake, don't quote me on this, but I believe it is by the end of September, applications can be submitted, and I can't remember the totality of the number, but it is in the hundreds of millions of dollars the federal government's allocated for this program. So again, Community Futures will be at a future council meeting to discuss that with council as a potential participating community.
Okay, thank you. So we're still looking at welcome kits and welcome baskets, and that was another point of engaging the chamber. In addition to that, there was the Legislative Watershed Council met. They actually had their AGM this past week. A couple of the events, one of which is on July 8th, friends, neighbors, if they have kids, there's the Kids Summer Kids Can Catch event from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Winagami Lake Provincial Park. You know, part of the AGM, our executive director did a watershed resiliency update. So yeah, this summer event was promoted, free fishing for kids, there's food, usually barbecue of some kind, lots of fun, games and fun for the kids. A little bit of learning as well in terms of that fishing camp. They have one in the winter time as well, which was quite well attended. They did a recap, a photo story of that winter event. There's an environmental camp, July 18th, 19th, and 20th as well. Yeah, so the watershed's busy as always. They're full of activities and school kids programs through the schools and things like that. So those were the couple of things for the last week. With that, I will move my report for information and pleased to take questions if any.
Thank you. Councillor Stenhouse?
Would you like to make a motion to advertise that fishing camp on our electronic sign?
It is nonprofit and it would qualify, so why not? I mean, if that's okay.
They can just put it on, they can apply for it and it'll get put on.
Oh,
if
Lesser
they
Slave
want.
Lake Watershed would have to
Yeah.
apply up here.
It's already on there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you, staff. Thank you very much.
Any other ones? No. I had a question. I'm just wondering if the Attraction and Retention Committee reached out to our new doctor and their new families to do anything with him and how he's making
So
out.
that came up, Dr. Courage. So we have a subcommittee. In fact, Councillor Yushishin is on that subcommittee. It's called the Welcoming Committee, actually. I don't know. I'll let you talk about it in your report. So there's two other folks on the committee that are part of that Welcoming Committee, but that did come up in our meeting also.
Okay, yeah, okay. Okay, anything else? Seeing none, all in favor? My report, I'll start off with a phone call that I received yesterday afternoon. That was not good, in that they got a call from Mosaic Vet Partners that they are looking at closing down the vet office here in High Prairie. Yes. Yeah. So, and like I said, is there anything I asked them if there's anything the town could do to keep them, or the town and the county together, and at this point, he didn't see anything. According to him, they've been losing some money over the last couple of years, and it isn't working, so they're looking at closing it. They're also hoping that they can sell it. With the biggest reason they were losing money was the people had to travel to get here and stuff, and they said if somebody was here, it would be a lot more viable, but so they're trying to sell it. He's not overly optimistic, but yeah, and they're looking at the end of July of closing the door. Yeah. So just so you know, that's yeah, not very good news.
I have 6 cats.
Yeah. So going on to maybe some better news, Heart River Housing Meeting, they are planning a sort of a grand opening gala on August 11th for the new Pleasant View Lodge apartments there. That's going to be happening. There was, at the last board meeting, talk about the big thing was the business plan, which will come back to our council once it's all finalized, but the big things that they're working on is that the Falaire build that's coming up, and then getting a needs assessment done on the Valley View community and region. So they're working on that in the next year and a half. There was also a report at that meeting on what they call small care homes. These are small 10-bedroom homes where they can give out care to seniors. And it's sort of an aging in place, and they're really, the person that was doing this really likes these because they're small, they're intimate, they're sort of like a home versus more of an institution, which you get in some of the bigger lodges and places like that. And they were interested, if any community might be interested, and had some land that they could make available. I know I chatted with our CAO the other day and said, hey, is there any land that the town owns that we could make available and possibly sell at a reasonable price? And we did have one property that is over the minimum size. They need at least of a third, and this is a half, maybe 3/4. So My question was going to be to you guys, and we have to sort of decide today, is this something that we could say, hey, our town would be interested? It's a public company that's doing this. They're a non-profit organization, but it is Esquizicare, I think is the name of it. But if we're interested, I can notify them that we have property, and they're not looking for a definitive price at this point, but they need to, by the end of the month, have some of these things nailed down so that they can go to and do needs assessment, figure out if it's a community that they want to come into.
Like the end of the month Friday? Or
Yeah, the end of the month, well, enough that they have the interest from us. Yeah, to say, yeah, we'd be interested, we would work with them on this land, not necessarily have a price or a contract on what we would sell it for or anything like that, but just the opportunity. So, it would take some of the pressure off in their minds off at like JB Woods, which is full, and there's people in our hospital that are waiting to get in, so there are some, we have the nice lodge there, but it's not big enough, and we knew that right at the start when it was being built. They were trying to get more rooms in it, but couldn't. So just an option there. I think, if they would come in, it would be good. They rent their places out at about $2,400 a month. And that's all, everything's included. Meals and the health care coverage that you need. And it can go from like level 2 to level 4 care, all in one place, so you can age in place. Let's see what else. I had the Northern Alberta Elected Leaders meeting. Some of the key things that came out of there, they made a motion to send out a letter to try and get funding for the Northern Alberta Elected Leaders with the new ministries and stuff. That was pulled a couple of years ago. They used to, through NADC, used to fund the administration of that group. But that's been pulled, so they're going to try and get some funding from them. There was quite a bit of talk on fire departments doing medical assists and what communities do and what communities don't. They were looking to send a letter, but after quite a bit of discussion, there was quite a bit of difference in, like, our community doesn't really do that, but in other communities they are supplying, I'm going to say paramedic type services as a fire department, and some want to get out of that. Most of them want to get out of it, but they're having to do it at this point in time. So we left that to each community to decide if they wanted to send a letter. The good news is there was a lot of chatter about closing the Spirit River Airport for air ambulance. Enough pushback has happened that they've backed off, and they're going to continue flying in and out of there. Had a report on windmills in the Smoky River MD area, and it was kind of interesting that the MD says they really have little control over it because the private landowners have signed agreements with these windmill companies, and because there's contracts signed, then they don't really have any recourse, and they can almost just push it through under the Alberta Utilities Act. So there was a lot there. That was some of the big information on that. That was I'm going to say the key things. A lot of the people were talking about fires and how they're dealing with the fires and their evacuations and some of the issues that they've had there, but we know those very well, I think, around this table. We also had the Joint Rec Committee meeting. At that meeting, we had the High Prairie School Division come in and request lower rates, I'm gonna say reduced rates, and sort of a longer-term contract for the schools and the rentals of our facilities. That was one issue, and another issue was, or I guess some good news, is that they went ahead and got the bigger score clock for the Sports Palace, and they also found, our recreation superintendent found a sponsor for the bigger clock, so there was no additional cost for that. So that was really good news. She did indicate that in May, the pool was shut down for 5 days due to a bearing in one of the ventilation systems, and then they also had to shut down for 1 or 2 of those days were because of smoke in the facility that they couldn't clean out. JC Park's been really busy. They've got minor ball going. They got a wheat belt team playing out of there, and slow pitch has started. And they had a big tournament last weekend, and they got a couple more tournaments coming in the near future. The Sports Palace ice resurfacing, or the change out of the pad, is going along. They lost some time due to the fires and smoke and everything, but they are, well, I'm going to say on schedule, but they're hoping to see if they can keep on schedule here. They've ran into, I guess, some minor changes. One of the things that they did is they've lengthened the length of the ice to get it up to, I think, 196 feet from 192. So they're making it 4 feet longer, closer to NHL size. The width was already there, but not the length. So they're trying to get it closer to NHL regulation size. And they've had some issues with, once they took out the old boards and the walkways and the stands and the supports underneath all of those and the ramps going up and down, they've had to do a lot of getting it up to code and do some increased supports for all of that. She mentioned there's quite a few events that have been in the Gordon Buchanan Center. So they've had the dance recital, they've had the circus, they've had the Salvation Army all there. So it's been the GBC's been fairly busy, along with their sort of drop-in sports. That's been going good. The arena staff mentioned that they're having some real issues with their mower and for cutting grass out there, and they've had to get the facilities people to go, or not facilities, I should say Public Works, to go over there and cut the grass for them and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, with that, I'll move my report for information, but I'll also take any questions that you may have. Oh, and you can.
Could I just, through the mayor, provide just a little update on the Sports Palace? We had a meeting with the contractor today. Because of the fires and that, and they had to move their crews off-site, and there was a bit of shutdown. So we're attempting to have the facility up and running as planned, but we will be notifying the users of that facility that we may need to develop. It would be prudent to develop a contingency plan for a potential 1 or 2 week delay in that construction schedule. So the user groups will be communicated. So if you hear something, that's what it's like, and it's just a contingency plan at this point.
Okay. Councillor Stenhouse.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the vet clinic. Is there any way we usually, getting back to our fall conference, we usually send an invitation for one of the councillors from the county if they'd like to attend. I don't know if that's still on the table or not, but where I'm going with this, is there any way that we could team up with a county member and lobby a minister or somebody about the vet clinic?
It's a private business. I don't think we're gonna be able to get a minister to change, what a private business does.
But the province used to have a grant and help fund it.
I'm not aware of that, but if it's something's out there, we could try, yeah.
Okay, so, are we going to invite a county councillor to our convention? And maybe we could, I can follow up on that provincial funding with them? And see, like, I don't know, I'm just trying to keep it here. Like, what can we do? Is there something we can do?
That was my question to him, exactly. Was there something that we could do? He did not mention that as an option to me, that yes, there's a government grant and you can try and get it. But
Used to, they had stopped it. I know they stopped it the last year, might be 2 years now, but the province used to help in funding with.
well, we could certainly,
Could we
look into it.
contact the county and
Yeah.
see about that, and maybe we could throw something together, like this is time sensitive?
Yep, yeah, I mean, if we can keep them, I
Okay.
don't know.
So that's my vet thing. Social housing, I'm not in support of more social housing in this community.
This is not social housing.
Okay, so you see, when you first mentioned it, you said it's a 10-bedroom place. I was picturing like a hospice. What is this? It's gonna be privately owned, or are they gonna expect the town to be kicking in for free land,
No.
cut their utilities?
No,
What
they're-
kind of support are they looking for from the
They would
town?
pay taxes on the land, they would have to buy the land, it's a business, but it's a non-profit business that runs it.
So that being said, they will come knocking at our door saying we need help.
They have not done that in the other communities that they're in, she said.
And how long have they, I need more information. How long have they been in business? Where are these other things?
I don't know all of that. The gal that made the presentation started this sort of a company. She was doing it, that was her business, about 10 years ago. And she got 5 or 6 of these going in that time frame. And they were all going well. According to her, the people all really liked staying there. The rates were reasonable, and the selling feature for, if you're looking at this, is that you got a small, intimate home that you're living in, not in a bigger facility. But you do pay more. You're paying more. It's it's more of a market rent, but.
Yeah, I get what she's saying, but you know that AHS is gonna dip their feet into this and say, oh, that's not by regulation. Oh, you can't be doing that. You can't be dispensing medications without
No,
one
they
of our
have a
RNs.
contract with AHS to do the health in this facility. So they have to have that contract with AHS, and they have those contracts, and they've been running this for, like I said, at least 10 years. However, that gal that owned them has sold them to this nonprofit that's running them now. But it is, they would pay taxes. It's in my head, it's getting another business in our town and giving it another option to our seniors. And it would free up, like right now, there's people staying in the hospital because they can't get out of JB, they can't get into JB. No, but that would take some of that pressure off.
Yeah, you're taking the pressure off the province again. And I know it's a double-edged sword. But I see it differently. Like, again, here we are. We're gonna kick in for the province not living up to their responsibilities. But we see it differently. So my next question was with the rec committee, And I know that the tennis club is a private thing, but are they helping them in any way to promote the tennis club, the pickleball, anything like that? Are they involved in that at all?
I don't believe so, no. I think that the tennis club has asked for them to put some dirt around the outside of the tennis courts because it's starting to wash away. And the cement and the posts is, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't been involved with that. That was gonna happen, but
If I could, that hasn't gone to the joint rec committee, but there has been a request from the tennis club to do some remedial work related to our land, basically.
Yeah, well, not only that, because we do list it as one of our attractions. We've got tennis courts, pickleball, so, you know, if they're reaching out to us, and I know they are struggling for memberships and stuff like that, let's try and keep them afloat too, so we don't lose that. And that's it for my questions.
okay. Councillor Martins?
So along the lines of Mosaic Vet, are there any vet techs here in town? You know, either, I don't know if NLC has a program. I was just curious because he's right, coming from Grand Prairie, every time we've seen a vet, she's been from out of town. So I'm thinking viability, if there were local vet techs or veterinarians, or there's a program at NLC, and again, I don't know, maybe, you know.
I can say there is no vet tech program at NLC. I mean, the province put a lot of money into getting the veterinarian training at the University of Calgary, and they doubled the seats in that just, I think, 2 years ago. So, and I asked him, I said, what are the chances of getting somebody out of there that might want to come here? And he said, well, you know, the veterinarian shortage isn't just in northern rural Alberta. This is a Canada-wide issue, and you can go, you know, almost anywhere in the country, and there's a shortage. So when I asked him if that's going to help, he said he doesn't know. He said it might. You might get somebody that's in the program from this region, and they want to come back to this region, and they might want to start up. But he said he doesn't know of anything like that. So, all right, I don't see anything else. So I move my report for information. All in favor? But before we move on, I'd like to make a motion that we contact this Exquisicare, I believe is their name, and make the offer to see if they're interested in them coming to High Prairie.
Could we get them to come to a council meeting and present first?
We don't have time.
Oh, right, because you need to have the answer by
They've
this
got to
Friday.
have something in there, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that it's, we're contacting them to say, we think this is a good idea, show us what you got. And if it turns out that it's not gonna work, then we don't have to sell them the land.
That's right.
It's kinda simple, so.
Yeah, we have land that we don't really need. We could sell, we could collect tax on it. To me, that's a win right off the bat. And then if we can get 10 people in an area into a facility that they're going to be happier at, again, for me, that's a win. If they can be in a more homier environment that they would rather be in. And again, this is not social. It's not subsidized. It's a user pay that we, user pay system there.
Yeah, and it's, just to add to that, there are some people that don't look at some of the conventional lodges because of the larger group of people. So that would definitely give another option there.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing no other questions. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that carried. Or that was closer than I thought, but carried. Councillor Stenhouse.
I have no report.
Okay. Councillor Wakel.
Actually, awesome. The broadband committee did meet I think it was last week, and it was mostly just a construction update. They're happy with their penetration into the market, and they didn't give me a firm answer when I'm gonna have it at my house, but I know the conduit's into my backyard. It's just a matter of getting the fiber in there and lighting it up, but they are really quite ecstatic with the penetration that they've gotten. And I think TELUS may have heard about it because I got a message from TELUS saying, hey, you get unlimited data now. And I go, I don't care. So there's that. And then I got something I want to read. I actually wrote this down, so just give me a second. I gotta pull it up again. Oh, come on. Where the hell is it? Sorry, just bear with me a moment. So we have a serious drug problem in our community. I don't think there's anybody that'll deny that. And from midnight until 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, we see very little presence of enforcement, be it our guys, be it RCMP, be it anything. So yeah, no, I realize that, but it's there needs to be a crackdown on this. I've spoken to business owners who have had stuff stolen from behind locked gates, locked compounds, and you know, and they just freely roam around stealing this stuff. I know, paying attention to some of the posts on social media, that, you know, homeowners are concerned as well. So we need to have some sort of a crackdown on that, and we need to find help for these people that are fighting these addictions. It's not just about kicking their ass and putting them in jail, because that's not necessarily the whole answer to it. They need help. So, because at some point, a business owner or a homeowner is going to catch one of these people breaking into their place, and then who knows what's going to happen. I know there's a lot of frustration out there between business owners and homeowners and whatnot, and if they catch somebody in the act, you know, they could very easily unalive this person. And we don't need vigilantism. That's a great way to get on the 11 o'clock news across Canada, that you've got a vigilante group going around doing this, and it's not what we need in our community. We need to speak with the RCMP to up the enforcement there. It's the witching hour, midnight to 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. We need to talk to federal ministers. We need to talk to provincial ministers. This is part of what I'd like to speak to Minister of Justice, if we can get a hold of them at the Alberta Municipalities Conference. And who would ADAC? Is ADAC still a thing? It was when I was a kid, but you know, we have to have something for these people before we don't want to have roaming groups of frustrated homeowners and business owners hunting these people down. They need help. We need to, first off, we need to stop the perpetration of the crime, and we need to get these people the help that they need, so we can have a community that all of our residents feel safe in, they feel confident in, and they feel proud to call home. So that's that's what I'd like to see. You know, if we can have Staff Sergeant come to our next meeting and we can maybe discuss some of these things. And I'm not, I don't want to point fingers at our peace officers. I don't want to point fingers at the RCMP. We need to change the focus a little bit here, I think, to deal with this issue. And it's a group effort between law enforcement, between addictions and all that and whatnot, and AHS probably too, ultimately in the end, to help these people wean themselves off of these drugs. Meth is horrible. It's here and it's causing problems, and we need to do something to deal with it. And that's my report. Move that for information.
No questions?
I just want to make a statement. I echo your sentiments on we need more patrols in the witching hours. Even just the presence of our peace officers will make a difference.
And if I guess I can add to, as a comment, I'll comment on my own report. I know there was a group that was looking at getting the citizens on patrol going again. It's no small task to get that group going. You need probably 45 or 50 volunteers at least to run that effectively. Anything less, and as people kind of drop off and nobody's really coming in, you end up with people who are going 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nights a month, and that's not what they signed up for. If you have 45, 50, 60, then you go, well, if you got 60 people, you go once every 2 months. And that's, you know, most people can handle that. So to the group that's looking at getting that going, I urge you to continue your efforts. I know Alan had said that he was willing to work with them. I know the RCMP had said they're willing to work with them, but that has to start from the community. That's not something that we can start. That's not something that the RCMP can start. That has to grow from the community, and it needs members that are dedicated to it. So I encourage them to continue their efforts.
I get what you're saying there too, James, but what is the mean average age of this town? So it's going to be a struggle for a young population to be out on Citizens on Patrol.
I understand. That's why you need 50 or 60 or more. Well, if you get 90, it's once every 3 months.
What's the average age?
I don't know. I don't know what our average age is.
Okay, anything else for Councillor Wakel? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Yashishin?
Drum roll.
Yeah.
Last but not least, I had the one meeting. I had the Health Professionals Attraction and Retention Committee. As Councillor Martins indicated, Barry Shikawi came in from the chamber. He let us know that it is up and running, and they'll be, or he'll be starting, and we should be seeing some things coming from there. It was good to have him there. We had some ideas for him. There was a presentation from Jennifer Hutchinson that was in relation to RPAP and Holly Hanfield on their talent acquisition. So they kind of went through of, I guess, what they look for. It was a good presentation, bringing people and new people on. So that kind of tied in well with the committee there. There's a new incentive that was brought up, or that was presented, called and I hope I get this right, Rural Capacity Investment Fund. And basically it's an incentive for nurses to work in Northern Alberta, so that's always good. In regards to, I think, your question there, in regards to the Dr. Courage coming on and the arrival, we talked about the pre-arrival questionnaire, had some discussion on who who it should go out to. We were specifically talking doctors, and then we said that it really, it can go out to, anybody from that field, the AHS and, as well. So, there was a little bit of discussion on that. It is Ken Matthews and myself, that is on that group right now. I thought there was a third, but I guess it's just the two of us there. Dr. Courage, I believe, went through yourself. It was still back at that time, so that's who it went through there. With any new arrivals or that we get, we need to know ahead of time when somebody is looking at the community and looking at coming to the community, so that we have enough time to be able to orientate them, bring them around, and introduce them there. So far today, we haven't had any new ones since Dr. Courage. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I have nothing else to add in that regard, so I move my report for information.
Okay, my question was, and I think I gave it to you there, what has if anything, has the committee done now that Dr. Courage is in the community? I mean, getting him here is one thing, but we know that to make him feel welcome, him and his wife, they've moved into the community. Has anybody reached out to them from the committee to welcome them to the committee or to the community, see if they need anything, answer their questions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to that unless Councillor Martins does, but not to my knowledge, there hasn't. I think he kind of did the orientation and came in and started working. And as far as I know, there isn't, but I could be wrong.
Can I make a suggestion that the committee gets in touch with them? Or if we have a welcoming committee, that they do?
Yeah,
I
do
mean, it's the
follow up.
first, we've had the committee together, and this is the first person coming in. We should meet them, and we should make them feel welcome. That was the whole purpose of the committee, was to get those things going. So if we're
Absolutely.
not doing that, we're missing the boat, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, he had come on before. We haven't really actually had one come on in the committee.
Well, the
committee
welcoming was
started
good.
though,
Yeah.
so yeah, we could definitely follow up.
I think the welcoming was okay, when he was touring, but now that he's here, needs to be some follow-up.
Checking in, absolutely, yeah.
Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Meeting adjourned.